a source to use to find current newspaper articles that can be leveled to fit a student's reading needs. And they all include now a writing aspect. You can ask them a question, they can respond right there on the screen. And most of them, I don't even know if I'd say most, many of them also have multiple choice quizzes that go along with them. It has a lot of interesting features. Once you get signed in, the most important bar is this blue Newsela bar at the top. If you move away from this main page and you want to get back to it easily, if you just click the Newsela that's in all caps, it'll take you right back to the main page. I would suggest the first place to look is right there where it says your name. Mine says, hi Joy. If you look at underneath what comes up when you put your cursor over it, you guys aren't going to have the faculty button, I don't think. But you will have the account and the students. Yeah, if you just go hover over your name, you should see that drop-down menu come up. The account button is the spot, if you click on it, where you can go to actually add your classes. And it's really easy to do. So, it comes up on this first screen that gives the information about you. It'll allow you to change your password if you want to, down here with the little kind of pencil in a box looking thing. I have checked for mine the email preferences to send me the article of the day and the other. I will tell you, if you check that, they will go to your quarantine folder. I don't know why they go to your quarantine folder, but if you want to see them, you'll have to fish them out of your quarantine folder. I don't know if there's a way to change that. I have not been successful in getting it changed. Then, right up there beside where it says account, you see students. If you click the students tab, this is where you create your classes. So I have created all of my classes for this semester. I teach the same class all 4 times. So for me, I just labeled it first period, second semester, second period, second semester, and so forth. You could, of course, differentiate based on what you have. All you do is in the box, type in your name, whatever grade level it is, and add the class. Once you do that, it will generate what I have here, these sign-up codes. This is the code the student needs to get into your class. The good news is it always stays here. So if you have a student that comes in 3 weeks from now and you need to work them into your class, the sign-up code is right there. You also have beside it a quick start guide PDF that you can click and generate and make copies of and pass out to students for them to do it. I've never done it that way. I've always found it much easier just to give them a laptop and all at once do it all together because it's really not that challenging. Now, I will say, we want students to have only one account no matter how many teachers' classes they are a part of. So when they come to you, ask them if they already have a Newsela account. For example, my students do. So Mr. Browning, we share a lot of the same students. Many of his students don't need to make an account. They just need to add his class code. The reason we want them to have the one account and only one account is because the program, after 8 quizzes, will start to level the articles for the students' individual reading needs. At first, it's based on the grade level you put in, but after 8 quizzes have accumulated, and that's 8 quizzes across the board, not just 8 quizzes for my class, 8 quizzes for Mark's class, 8 quizzes across the board, they will start to set the reading level for the students. So that's the reason we want them to have only one account. When you give them their account and they get signed up, it's really easy to help them if they have trouble. So it should help us to keep them with only one account. So this is my first period. So for Chad, I have his username. So if he forgets his username, I can tell him. If he screws up his password and can't remember it, I can change his password for him. It's also quite simple to do. I made myself a part of this class. I am the J Keen in this class. So if I forget my password, all I have to do is click on the key, type in my new one, and submit it. I did this the other day for a couple of mine who forgot their passwords. And then they can go in and change it under their own account settings if they want to. But this is an easy way to make sure they know they don't have to make multiple accounts, which they get used to doing because they forget their passwords, they forget the email address they used, all that.
Let's say, for example, obviously if you share a student and they, you, Mr. Brown, and they would use the same username, the same passcode.
Yes.
Would they show up in Mr. Browning's class?
Once he gave them his class code, they would have to enter the class code to get into his class.
So that other code that was up there?
The other code that's up here, yes.
Okay.
Once they enter that code,
Then they'll be in both your class and his class.
And his class, yes. So they have one account, but they could have, I guess, as the year progresses, they could have as many as 8 class codes that they're entering. So it's really easy to handle, and then you just have the running list that you can go in and adjust and change anytime you need to. In order for students to sign up, in your packet, I gave you the Quick Start Guide for Teachers. You don't need to look at it now because I'm going to talk about all of it, but in case, like I said, your brain is a little full or elsewhere while we're talking, you can come back and look at it. It walks you through how to set up your classes, how to get students signed up. Students sign up the same way that you did. They go to the box, you guys pick the teacher box, they pick the student box. They do, for the first time they sign up, have to have a class code. So if you're the first teacher that they see to make an account, you have to give them their class code before they start. If they already have an account, they go in and they separately put their class code in later. And I can show you where that is here in a little bit. So setting up your classes is super easy in terms of kind of how to put students in. Then, once you've got your classes set up, then it turns into assigning articles. One of the features I love the most about this is that it's very searchable and that you have all kinds of different options. Every day there are 3 brand new articles that show up. They're always at the top on this main page. So today's the app about tracking food organisms, the whale activists hoping for an orca's release, and then more Brian Williams and his issues. So those are the 3 for today. And then as you scroll down, days pretty recent will show up, but you can search the whole thing. So not only do we have the categories that you see up there at the top, so war and peace, science, kids, money, law, health, arts, sports, all of those up there at the top, you can click the magnifying glass and you can search. Keyword search, for one of my recent articles that I had on do, I keyword searched poverty. You can, of course, choose your grade level if you want to. You don't have to. You can just search all poverty. Reading standard, I think, is one of the helpful ones. One of the reasons Ms. Greenhoe is so excited about us using this is because it hits the reading and writing across all the content areas. And the reading standards are, I think, all very universal to all content areas. So you can choose by, probably the one that's going to pop up the most, central idea. Without giving even a parameter for the search of a type, I found 220 articles that tie into being able to recognize central idea. You could also go in and only want quizzed articles. Oh, there we go. Still 220. So all 220 of those have quizzes. The way you know it has a quiz is this light bulb right here above the title but underneath the picture. And when you hover over the light bulb, it will show you the standards that it's specifically looking at in the quiz. So that's kind of how you navigate through. Once you pick an article that you want to assign, you basically put it in your binder. So what that means is, say I want to do this one, the cost to play school sports is rising and fewer students can afford it. As soon as I click the article, all of my classes show up. So all 4 are here. In order to assign it, I just click the box. If I change my mind and I only want to assign it to 4th period, not the others, I can change that. It's really kind of easy to manipulate. So if I assign it to 1st period, it'll show up in their binder, but say I change my mind 2 days later, I can take it away pretty quickly. When you look at the article, you've got this blue bar over here, and you've got this area right down here where it says grade level and word count. Couple of things. When you look at it as a teacher, you can always see grade level. When students see this, they don't see the grade level. They'll see the word count, but they won't see the grade level. And like I said, the first time, it should assign it based on the grade level you put in at the beginning. So I put in 11th grade, so it's assigning it up here at the 1130 Lexile level. Not the top, but pretty close. In my classes, because they're AP students, they have to do the max level. I don't give them an option. They have to. So a student can go in at any point and change the level that they're using. They don't have to stick with the one that's assigned, which I think in some ways is good. If they're struggling with a particular part, they can knock it all the way back down here to the 690 which knocks us down to a 4th grade level and a word count of 377. Changes the title, changes the number of paragraphs. You can see a lot of difference between children like to play school sports, but some families can't afford it as your title, versus the max level, health losers pay to play sports and they sideline low-income kids. And you notice, this one's not a very long article, but it goes from a really small number of words here up to 419 and to the 12th grade level. So they can adjust using that blue strip. It's always going to be there even for them.
So do you know if any of them are the actual as printed copies?
That is the max.
The
max is the actual as printed article. And I had it explained to me in the webinar I took that there are a team of people whose job it is to take these articles and rewrite them at the different lexile levels, which I think actually kind of sounds like an interesting job.
Yeah.
But, you know. Then you'll notice on this blue, you have 2 other features, well, 3. You've got the write feature, which we'll talk about in a second, the quiz feature, and then, of course, you can always print it if you want to. I will say, my students really like sitting in front of the computer and doing it. They like the fact that, for them in my classroom, it's a change of pace, so they like the sitting in front of the computer. The quiz is always 4 questions. For me, because I'm the teacher, it's giving me the right answer. For the students, of course, it won't do that. I will say there are always 4 choices, A, B, C, D. So make sure that they scroll to see the 4 different choices. And they just go through and take care of each of those. When they finish, they get immediate feedback of how many they missed. When I had my AP students do it the other day, there were some students who were really unhappy when they realized they missed 2 out of 4 and had a 50 on quiz. Which I then use a lot to talk about what was tricky in that question, or what didn't you read carefully that you needed to answer that question. So the quiz is very, I think, quick and very much user-friendly. The other option, the right option, this is brand new. This just started in January. So if you've used it before, like Mark or another one of the English teachers that has been playing with it, they didn't have a right feature until really recently. So you'll notice they have a prompt for you. This says, pick a detail from this article, explain how it helps you understand the bigger ideas in the article, write out your answer. Okay? What I love, because for my AP students that's a little bit simplistic, is I can go in, so long as I click the box with the pencil, and edit and change it to whatever I want it to be. When I took the webinar on the write part of it, they told me, I asked the question, how much can they write? Because, you know, there are times I want them to write a lot. 4 million character limit, so they can write plenty. There's not an issue of running out of space in the right box. So you can save your prompt, and then once you assign it, it's all there. Another thing you can do, which I really like, because this is my mantra in teaching.
Joy, they can type right in there.
Type right in the box. And we'll talk about, I did this with my students not too long ago, we'll talk about some of the interesting pitfalls we found that I can help you avoid. Another thing you can do with the article itself, what I really like, is you can annotate. You can annotate as the teacher, and they can annotate as the student. So you can do both. When I talk a lot in my class about annotations, talk about active reading. You should be writing as you read. Well, if this is not printed out for them, they can't write. So they have to do it on screen. They can highlight. You can, both of us, students and teachers. So if I want to make a note about this particular sentence, the first sentence of the article, you'll notice what pops up is this range of colors. You click on a color, a little bar pops up, and you can make your own, type in your own comment. Then below that is a share button. If you share it with the students, they will see your annotation. So you could ask them questions, you could make comments for them to see. If you don't share it, it stays private to you. So for example, if I wanted to assign an article that we were going to discuss, and I wanted to annotate it myself, but I wanted them to annotate their own and not see mine, because I didn't want them to take their cue from me, I could annotate my own, they could annotate their own, and we can talk about it together. But if you want to share, all you have to do is click that share button. If you change your mind later, you just re-click, it'll say unshare. You could, depending upon colors, you could pick so that could be the question I ask my students. If I share it with them, if I change my mind, it's turned into unshare, I can take it away. The one tricky spot with annotations is if you want it to be on every level of Lexile, you have to put it on every level of Lexile. And when I asked them about that, because it seemed like a whole lot of work, their answer made perfect sense. The fact that the article changes so much from Lexile level to Lexile level means you got to go in and look at it and make sure the annotation actually fits in that spot. It may not, that paragraph may not be there in the lowest level, or there may be extra things added in the highest level. So if you want them to see all the annotations at every level, you have to go in and put it in every single level of the Lexile. I would say too, I thought about it with mine, I always put it in at the max, knowing that they can click back and read the lower levels if they want to, but then I remind them they have to go back to the max to answer my questions or to annotate themselves. So I think you can still get away with only putting it on one level. You just might want to be careful about what level you're putting it on. Okay? For mine, it has worked out so far. This is the annotation feature. It works the same way for them. And it leaves you, I'll show you an example here in a second of one that my students did. It leaves you the response to respond to them just like they can respond to you. So you can go through and add in your own notes. You can ask questions. You can do all kinds of those things. All of that information that you do shows up then up here in this category, the binder, where you will see your assignments, your classes, and your student progress. I'll show you one of the assignments mine have done most recently. I deleted my first semester stuff because it was just so cluttered. But I can show you this one that we did not too long ago. I found an article that is talking about the current state of socialism in Venezuela, and we had just finished reading The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, which also ties into socialism. So I asked them a written question that ties into not only the article, but asked them to also connect it to The Jungle. So that's kind of how I worked the two together. If this will, oh, there you go. When it comes up in your binder, it'll show all of your classes and how they're doing on your assignments. So for example, let's look at a decent class. All right. So third period, they have, on the quiz they had an average of 87. One person has not completed the quiz for whatever reason. I could go in and figure out why. 21 of them have done the annotations that they're supposed to do. I required that I had 3 annotations on the article. I'll show you the article in a second. They had to respond to 2 of my annotations. They had to answer me, and then they had to make 2 brand new annotations of their own. Then they had to take a quiz, and then they had to do the written part. So this tells me about their annotations. It tells me how many have done the written response. 17 of 22 did the written response. All 22 of them have viewed the assignment. So you can tell if they have looked at it or not, which I think is helpful. And it also tells me that the quiz level is the highest at grade 12. If I expand it, I can see the individual students and how they did. And it tells me, so for example, let me highlight Anna since she's got it all. She took the quiz, she got 100. She completed it, finished completing it yesterday. I can review her written response by clicking on for review. That was also completed, and she has 7 total annotations. So that tells me she answered 2 of mine, and then she added 5 more of her own. Okay? And all I have to do to see what she did is hit the for review, and it will show me the written answer to the right part. They give you the option to grade it like this, the check minus, check plus, check system. When I talked to them about this during the webinar, they wanted it to be as generic as possible so all disciplines could use it, and making the point that you could then decide what grade a check plus is, what actual number or letter that is compared to something else. There is a spot for you to actually post a comment about their response. You can't go in and comment down here on their actual typed response, which I kind of like, because as an English teacher, I'm writing on their papers all the time, and here I can kind of just give a general attaboy or not as it goes along. And so I can just scroll down and read her response. Keep in mind they're AP students, therefore most of their responses are going to be pretty long. Not all of them, but most of them. So that's the right part. Then I can also go in and look at specifically how she did on her quiz. Hers is not as fun to look at because she got 100. I'll show you one that's not 100, just trust me. Even though they're AP students, there were some that were not hundreds. And I can also look at the annotations. So here's an example. She annotated this line here in yellow. This is what she wrote. I can come right down here to reply to Anna and respond to her if I want to. Farther down, I highlighted this blue this statement, I asked the question, is this a significant diction choice and why? And then here's her response to my annotation. So it's a kind of nice way to check them, but also maybe engage in a conversation with them if you want to, if you have the time for that. Let me show you a quiz. If we go back to, let's go down here. You see I've hovered over somebody who has a 50 on the quiz. It means they missed 2 of the 4. And let me tell you how much that stresses out my AP students. Just share that with you. I can, if I want to, give this student a chance to retake it. So the option when you hover over it is that you can give them a reset. I can reset the quiz, they can start over and do it again. But I don't think you can do that for the whole class. I think you have to do it by individual students in order to kind of...
Does it change the quiz?
Yeah, so do they see the answer?
They have seen the answer if they've reviewed it. I mean, it'll show them the answer, and when they walk you through the review, you can kind of see the thinking of it. Last time I reset someone's, it shuffled them. So it wasn't just automatically the same letter answer, and they weren't in the same order of questions either. So it shuffles them a little bit. But that's a good segment too. So here we can see they'll show you which ones, and then you can go in and review, and actually he can see the ones he missed and look over them. And he actually, as soon as he took the quiz, he said, I don't agree with this one. And so I wrote it down, so when we go over it, we'll talk about that one and see. And I'll be honest with you, there are times that I look at these and I don't agree with them either. And we'll talk about that in terms of the question and what kind of pitfalls there are and those kinds of things. But it is really user-friendly for the student, and I also think it is relatively user-friendly for the teacher as well. So you can search for anything, you can assign anything to any binder. I have had students, haven't this semester, I have had students say, you can have any article you want to do. Pick out an article, take the quiz. The only thing you have to have is a quiz for that article. So kind of as a current event kind of thing I do sometimes. Choose an article, take the quiz. I didn't have the writing option then. I don't know, maybe I'd say write, maybe I wouldn't, depending on what we were working on in class at that moment. If they do that, it will show up in their binder for you to see as well, even though you didn't assign that article. So that's good too. And they like having the choice. And I have to say, they're good articles. They're interesting. They're kind of timely in terms of what's happening in the world, and some of them are kind of light and fun. There was one, I want to say it was in November, but it could have been October. There was an article that so many of my students did that was all about the giant pumpkin that was winning all the awards somewhere in the Midwest. They loved that giant pumpkin article. I'm not sure it was really all that great in terms of difficulty, but they loved the article. So you've got all that. One more element, and it's right up here beside the binder. If you find yourself in any trouble as you're working on Newsela, the Learning and Support tab will do wonderful things for you. One new one that I discovered just recently, when it takes you to the Learning Support, you have your choices, but the thing that pops up right down here on the right is an online chat. I've never used that before until yesterday when one of our faculty members couldn't get an account logged in. She couldn't sign up, and so she asked, what do I do? So I went to her, and it kept showing that her email address was already in use. So I came back I was going to put in a request to get help from one of the support team, but this popped up, so I thought, well, I'll try it. Figuring maybe at Roberson it wouldn't work because things don't always work. But it popped up. Within 3 or 4 minutes, I had the answer to my question. We got Miss Anderson into her account. They gave me her new username, her new password. She somehow was connected to a wrong school, something along those lines. And then, after I finished the chat, almost instantaneously, I got a transcript of the chat immediately emailed to my email account, which I thought was great. Because at first, I was worried that I was going to forget the username and password. So I just went ahead and copied and pasted it right there from the chat. But then when I realized I got the immediate transcript, that would make it even easier. So if they help you fix something, you will actually still have those instructions right there for you on your email. The quick links, I think, are also really helpful. If you need to look at how to sign up your students, there's a Write toolkit that has a sample rubric and then some examples of what would be check pluses, checks, and check minuses based on the rubric. The rubric is really generic, which makes sense because they're trying to hit everyone. The rubric is really generic, but there is a rubric. I copied the quick start guide for teachers for you, so that's what's in your packet. You don't need to look at that. There's a quick start guide for students. The 5 easy ways to use Newsela, I thought had some interesting ideas that you could certainly look at. The last one down there, you can attend a webinar. They give you these examples, how to do, focus instead on the picture that's with each article as opposed to the actual article itself first, how to use compare and contrast, how to use vocabulary. So there's all kinds of things there. The Write Toolkit also has an offer for you to be a part of their Write Challenge. Now that it's a new feature, they want people to submit their lessons that go along with Write, and they want you, and I think they'll reward you with a t-shirt. So if you're interested in something like that, they have a featured lesson. I checked it out the other day. It's not anything that we don't, I think, already do. The Quick Start Guide, Students Quick Start Guide, you can look at the webinar that I looked at to tell you all of this information. You don't need to because I'm giving it to you. The rubric's right down here. So you've got all kinds of, I think, really interesting things you can look at. And then, if you go back to, let's see, there's all kinds of different, you can just search your own topic. They will give you specifics. If you forget what I said about annotations, you can come here. So there's all kinds of places to go that they're giving you. So I actually think that the Learning and Support tab is really kind of a useful and helpful one. And you can take webinars. As of now, I don't know that they have any that I haven't taken. I don't think there are any that are particularly even that much more specialized. I just know that Ms. Greenhoe is really interested in making sure that across all of the curriculums that we are requiring students to read and write, especially with informational text, with nonfiction text, and this is a great resource for doing that. We did discover some things in my room that I'll just warn you about. Using the laptops from school, the laptop carts, a lot of times when students went to, when students went to read the article and then take the quiz, when they tried to scroll up and down, the bars were on top of each other, so you could scroll the article, but you couldn't scroll the quiz. And a lot of them missed questions right away because they didn't realize there was a choice D. They could see A, B, and C, but they couldn't see D. So we discovered that if you can get the cursor into, if you can get it into here, then using the arrow key fixes that problem. We also had some issues with the right part of it, and there were, I think, 2 kinds of issues we found. One, you know how these trackpads, you brush across it, you accidentally hit it with something, you touch a certain key pattern on the laptop that you run. Some people started typing, had a whole nice long response, and then poof, it disappeared. That happened to a handful. So it might be worth your while to suggest to them, if they're concerned about that they type it in Word and then cut and paste it into the right spot and then hit submit right away. You might feel more secure about what they've written if they do it in a Word document and then cut and paste it over there. I had some students who, when they tried to submit, it said submitting ... and it said that for a really long time, but it never seemed to finalize. And so what they did a lot of times was cut and paste out of the right, put it in a Word document, and email it to me to make sure that I had it. So you just might want to warn students that that can happen. The other weird thing, and it again ties into the scrolling, they would do the written part and they would scroll down as far as they could, but because of the weird kind of toggle bar issue, they couldn't get to the submit button. I am someone who fully believes that trackpads are the devil. Can't stand them. So I always use a wireless mouse. So when that happened to mine, I just unplugged my wireless mouse, plugged it into their computer, scrolled down for them, and clicked the submit button. So it might be handy to have a wireless mouse just in case they get into those. None of them had any of those troubles at their home computers. So I'm not sure what the issue was with the computers we were using, but it did have occasional glitchy moments. All right, so on here, underneath kind of the agenda of things, are just the tidbits that I took away from my webinars. I think I have talked about all of them. But if there is anything else, I talked about the 4 million, yeah. I mean, it's really pretty user-friendly, and there are lots of ways to find the answers. If, as you're working on it, you have questions and you can't figure it out, let me know. I've gotten pretty good at it from practicing with it. Yeah.
Well, Joy, you said you have a classroom set of computers. Do they do most of this in class, or?
I think you can do it either way. I will say, my students really liked doing it in class, on the computer, in the moment. For them, they said it was a nice change of pace for what we normally do. I think it works really well in class. I also think they like it when it's homework too, though, because they don't have to take anything home. They don't have to carry a book. They don't have to they don't have to find the handout. They can do it right there on the screen. So I think it's however you want to use it, whatever works best in your system.
Nice for a sub too.
I think it would be nice for a sub. And once they introduce it to the kids first, and then once you have the sub, they would know exactly to go to their binder, where to find it.
My son's teacher had him do it for homework. We just used it. We opened it up on the phone because we were.
There you go.
It wasn't fun, but
I can imagine the
because it's so
smallness.
small.
And I can show you, just so you can see, I went ahead and made myself a student because you know, in order to really be able to teach it to my students, I have to be able to, did I not do it right? Oh, I didn't put the H in there, sorry. In order to really be able to teach them about it, I like to make sure I know what it looks like for them. And so you can see, so here's my binder as a student. If I go to the assignments, this page trips them up a little bit to begin with. When you look at this first page, it's going to show up with this black screen of their results. Now keep in mind, I didn't take the quiz. That's their job. But it so if I had taken the quiz, it would show me how I'm doing on each quiz. If you scroll down to the bottom, here's where they actually see the work. So this is the assignment that I'm supposed to do. And it will go through and let me get right away started on working on that particular assignment.
I did that too. It pops up as a 670 for the brand new ones. If they don't remember to go and move it up, then is that going to be an issue from there? Or?
I would just impress upon them to make sure that they hit the highest level that you want them to, or that they're comfortable with.
Because you'll see which one they did.
You will, and it will show you. For example, with my AP students, they're supposed to automatically know that they have to go to the max level. Have to. It does not stop, however, students like this lovely one in my first period, who you'll see 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, all the way down until, oh look, 7. So, yeah, it will tell you what grade level and therefore what Lexile level they did everything at. So he didn't have the annotations, and this tells you how much he was paying attention. He didn't have the annotations, but didn't come and say, Mrs. Keene, I don't have the annotations. And never mind that was part of the assignment. So there you go. I can also show you, once you get your data in place, you can download your data to an Excel sheet, and then use that perhaps, so maybe PLC, you all assign the same article, you all assign the same writing prompt, the same quiz, and then you take your data and you manipulate it however you want to in Excel to show how they do.
Do that again. How'd you get there?
It's always at the very top. So it is, your periods are underneath, and so this is first period. It's always above your class periods, right over here on the side. Download quiz data. You can also, once you have it, now keep in mind, mine doesn't have it because it'll show you student progress. So eventually, it doesn't work right now because they've only had the one quiz. It'll show that they're a level 1, they need help, they're a level 2, they're getting there, or a 3 or 4 that they're really on track, and it will list them according to their percentile of being correct on the quiz.
I'm going to question.
Yes, ma'am.
You know how you gave them an assignment and it had writing and it had annotations? Were you able to put all of the assignment directions on were you able to handle it all through Newsela? That's what I'm trying to say.
Like the requirements of, make pre-annotations?
No, not that I know of. As far as I know, there's not a way to include, there's not a box for instructions.
So, well, I mean, I knew you could give them the essay by changing what you wanted.
Right,
So, and the annotations made clear a lot of what they had to do.
right.
So are you saying you did have to give them an additional?
I did, I put it on the board.
Okay.
These are the steps you have to take with this article. And I don't know of, and I can find out, I don't know of any way to go in and like set the assignment
I
somewhere.
don't either, but
I don't
that'd be
know.
great.
I can
As
look
long
it
as the students knew to look, I mean, you could just incorporate it into that.
up. I was gonna say, you can make it the first annotation if you wanted
Right,
to.
presentation
This is the
or
assignment.
changing the
Absolutely.
type of prompt.
Mhm. So that would be my suggestion without asking, but I can ask and find out. I've become pretty good buddies with the technical. Other questions?
Yeah, there's no place under class like CTE teaches mixed grade levels. So when you go and put grade, like my interior design one class has from 9th to 12th grade.
I would think you would just have to kind of settle on a generic one, like maybe 10th or 11th, kind of in the middle. And I'd say I wouldn't worry too much about it because they can adjust the Lexile level themselves. So if you set it at 11 and it gives them that high one and they're not ready for it, they can move it down.
And does it automatically change after they've had several quizzes?
After 8. After 8, it's supposed to level it specifically for them.
Them.
Can they still change it though?
They can still change it, yes. Which in some ways, at first it bothered me because I wanted it to be hard for the AP kids. But more and more, I think if they're smart enough to go in and lower it to understand something and then go back to it when it's challenging, then that's a skill in of itself. So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question. All the articles is in English. Is there any article?
As far as I know, there are no foreign language, written in foreign languages articles. Not that I know of. I think somebody asked that in the webinar I was on too. And
No,
it didn't have that
Start
yet.
the other versions of it. So.
Any other questions? All right. Well, I am done. You are free to go. Thank you for.
Thank you,
being
Dee.
so
Thank you.
reasonable.
That was really good.
A lot of information, short amount of time.
Well-
Winner, winner.
And again, if you forgot things I said and you need help, come find me.